Welcome to Legacy School. Our mission is to saturate the heart of every student with revelatory teaching that awakens them into the original intentions of God. Please visit legacyschoolonline.com to begin your journey of awakening your eternal impact.
Hello, I'm Dr. Greg Crawford again, and today wanting to talk to you about something kind of different. Came out of our Legacy School, Legacy, our online school. We have a ongoing Q&A every Wednesday for right now, and it's with our students from all over the world, and it gives them that interaction that they really need with somebody just to talk about some things. And I wanted to, they asked questions, and I wanted to bring out a question that he had asked in this class. He's actually one of our students that runs one of our bases in Nigeria, and he's also enrolled in our school. He has a pretty strong and healthy ministry there going, but as a leader, he sees the need to continue getting education. And he asked the question that was really a good question, and I gave a dialogue answer on it. I said, boy, that would make a really good video that other people probably be interested in. And so his question was this, and I think it's a question we're all asking in this hour. How can I shift a city or a region culturally as an apostolic kingdom center? I think it's a really good question, and I think that all of us are asking that question right now. How do I shift? How do I become a person in my city that has impacted my city? How do I take what I have or my abilities that I have, and how do I bring them to bear into a city so that there is a shift that goes on in that city? So today I wanted to basically start out with a scripture in Matthew 5:13. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its Savior, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world, and a city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. I think there's one of the first clues that we are light, that we cannot be hidden. And if you're hiding your light, you are not going to impact your city. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Now I think that there's some things in this section of Scripture that we can pull out here today. First thing is the fact that we are all a light. And as a light, we're supposed to be displaying that light. It's not the light of ourself, but it's the light of Christ shining through us. And he literally says, don't just display it by like setting it on a table or just like it would be lit as a candle. He says that we should be putting it on a candlestick. In other words, bringing it up and elevating it to a place where it gives out light to everyone that's in the house, not just in a small area. And that means that you have to become a person that has influence. Now we can give a lot of theological answers of how to change your city. We can say, hey, you need to increase prayer. You should start Bible studies. You should go out witnessing. You should start a helps ministry. You should get involved in a helps ministry. And all of those are good theological answers, or all answers we should be doing anyway. But he's saying something here specific, and it's about that light being put on that candlestick, giving light to a lot of people. We've had people in our own ministry. We have several that have ran for public office and gotten elected. And they're influencing their cities through those avenues. And all of those things that I just said will influence your city. But how did I answer this student in Legacy School, living in Nigeria and concerned about his city and region, and asking, how can I change this with the Kingdom Center, Apostolic Center that I have? And this was my answer to him. I said the key to this strategy is influence. Influence is the key to change. Running for public office, praying, all of those things are degrees of influence. Some of those are hidden degrees. Some of them are out in public. That's what the verse we just read about in Matthew was about a public display or being out where people can see you. Now, that's kind of scary because that means they may see all of you, the good, the bad, the ugly. They may see the things that you don't want them to see. You have to be very careful when you go out onto a public platform or public display. But my answer to him was influence. And now, what does influence really mean? Influence is the ability to affect behavior and beliefs. That's really what it is. You're affecting two areas of life in people. Their ability to what they believe, how they approach things based on their belief system, and then their behavior because of what they believe. And so those two elements, behavior and beliefs, is what every culture is made up of. Every culture is holding those two areas inside of it. And so today we have a lot of people that are influencers. One of the main things is through social media, such as this video. We have two distinct groupings. I believe we have content creators and we have content influencers. Now, what do I mean by that? I believe that people are creating content, but the content may not influence people. They may be hoping it influences, but it's not adding any value to people. So their content creators are just looking for likes. They may not be looking for change in culture or what people believe or how they behave. But content influencers are probably content creators as well, just like myself. I'm a content creator, but I'm really a content influencer. And I made the decision about 25 years ago that I would work and push in more into the point of influencing influencers than I would on trying to administrate or manage a lot of things. You can only manage so many things in your life and ministry, but you can influence 1,000 times more. And so I decided I want to influence, and it really wasn't my decision, it was more God. And I have built my life around influencing. And so, you know, when we're influencing others, there's a great responsibility. And when we started our schools of ministry overseas, I soon realized that I was influencing what all of these leaders were believing and what they were teaching. And the influence of what I had done in their lives as their leaders of schools, we had 60 schools, we had close to several thousand students enrolled in all these schools, that it was far reaching the point of influence of what I would say or what I would teach, or even a teaching outline that I would give a school, how it would be multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. And so we need to look at, if you're especially in ministry, you need to stop and look at your people and ask yourself these questions. Who can my ministry influence? Today, your ministry is made up of a grouping of people, each with unique gifts, talents, abilities. But who can my ministry, or who could this group of people possibly influence? And where can they influence? Are they all kind of in the same areas of life and doing the same things, or are they in varied areas of life? But where can they take what they carry and begin to influence where they're at? And that leads us to the third question is, what are the spheres of influence? Spheres of influence are things like the school system, work areas, politics, government, neighborhoods. All of these places are spheres of influence. So the statistics actually say that you decide 10 people firsthand their decisions that they will make in life. You decide what they will value. You decide where and what they will spend their money on. And you help them decide in what they invest their time in. And you also change how they think about certain topics in life. Now that's interesting to me because that is 10 people directly. So let's say you have a ministry of 50 people. You're actually in that ministry of 50 have the effect on 500. If the ministry is 500, you have an effect on 5,000. So we're not talking about addition, we're talking about multiplication, and that was what the book of Acts was about. When they moved to multiplication is where everything began to be influenced. So you're looking at how you can multiply the factor of who your people are, what you've invested into them, and where can they release that out into the culture so that they can begin to change what people believe, so they begin to change people's behavior. Now the same poll says that you indirectly affect 100 people or have a role in influencing 100 people by the 10 that you influence. So again, this means the 10 are each influencing 10. So that means they're influencing about 100 there, and you're having a role as one person influencing in some fashion about 100 people out of your life. Now, if you have 50 people in a congregation, you directly influence about 500, but you indirectly influence the multiplying factor again of 10. You're actually influencing outwardly about 5,000 people. Now, if you have a small group of people, that should really encourage you of your influence that you're carrying and how far-reaching it can really be. Now, it comes down to really a key in all of this. And the very first key is relationships. Relationships are the driving factor in everything in the kingdom. And you're only going to influence where you have relationships. If you have relationships that are lacking, or you have only a handful of relationships, we'll say, you're only going to influence that handful of people. If you have a lot of relationships, you're going to influence and carry a greater weight of influence in those relationships. But maybe what I should say is you have the potential to influence. Just because you have the relationships doesn't mean you're automatically going to influence those people. It comes down to a second key. And the second key is you have to be confident about what you present to people. In other words, like a good salesman, you have to know your product and you have to be able to show how that person can connect to what you're trying to bring to them. And so the main thing that you are being confident in as you're presenting whatever you're trying to influence somebody with, mainly I'm talking about kingdom influence and truth influencing, is that you have to have a vision of what that truth has done for your life or what the kingdom means to you, and you're passing vision to someone else to increase their awareness and for them to be able to see if they want to participate in what you're offering. And maybe I should say that again because I think that's a really important statement. You're passing vision to someone else so that they're more aware of what they might be lacking, and you're giving them an invitation to participate in that vision. So you're giving an invitation for a vision or a truth that you have experienced firsthand to become a reality in someone else's life. Now, in sales or in the corporate world, we'll just call it that way, they call this a corporate appeal. It's an appeal to collaborate concerning a cause. And that is one way of influencing others. You are presenting a cause. The cause can be inside of the vision that you just talked about and said, here's the overall vision, and we're looking for people to participate because there's a cause here that's worthy, and we're wanting you to be a part and not feel left out. Another appeal is a rational appeal. It's where you are presenting facts and truths so people can make intelligent decisions without feeling pressured or feeling the pressure of persuasion just because others are doing it. So I think this is a very good way of presenting things to people without like arm twisting and trying to get them forced or feeling pressure to be part of something. Third thing is, and see, each one of these requires effort on your part. But the third appeal, or the third way of influencing, is through the heart. The heart is connecting your appeal to their values, passions, and visions. And maybe the vision that you're giving them of a better life or a better way or a deeper truth, you're finding a way to connect that to the values and passions they already have. Because once you connect it into their heart, it creates more of a long-lasting and satisfying outcome. And it requires a solid relationship to really know a person, to know their passion, to know their vision. All of these things require an investment of time and an investment into the relationships. The relationships I'm talking about through influence, the influence through those relationships are only going to be as great as the relationship really is. So, influencing is not a one-time moment. It's not a one-time event. It requires work. It requires consistency. It requires an investment of time, of energy, and probably great communication skills. Because many times we are trying to communicate something, like I'm trying to communicate something to you here, and if I don't communicate this correctly, you will not understand what I'm trying to say to you. You have to know what you're trying to convey, and you also have to figure out a way to communicate it in a way that people can understand it, and they can receive it, and they can apply it. And once you do that, you now have become an influencer. So that means you've got to really know what you are trying to communicate and influence. You also need to know that you have to give answers to the questions that might arise. So if you're trying to convey a certain truth, you need to study around that truth so that you can give the answers that possibly will arise of what you're trying to persuade people to be involved in. Because what you're doing is you're persuading them to be the agents of change in the culture around you, to bring kingdom dynamics and principles into their life that thus would affect the culture around them. And you have to know what are kingdom principles, what are kingdom dynamics, what are questions people will ask about the kingdom. And then what you're doing is you're taking principles and connecting it with their passions, and maybe even giving assignments or coming up with assignments that will impact that person and impact culture and bring a fulfillment into their life. I think that we really need to be greater people of influence in this day and hour. And that means that we're going to have to be involved in being able to confront faulty belief systems, bringing people into real truth, and not just presenting something in its partial form, but really understanding where we can bring it into the fullness of truth and present it in the fullness of truth. Because when you bring the fullness of truth, it's very hard for people to argue with it. It brings them to decision points, and they either are going to accept that influence that you've brought concerning Christ and the kingdom, or they're going to deny it in their lives. So influence is really what I would call a persuasive process. It takes time to change. It takes time to build trust, because you have to gain trust. And that means that you're investing in relationship. And I cannot stress enough the investment of relationships. I have a lot of relationships in my life, and it has enabled me to be an influencer in those relationships. But you have to be able to present yourself not in a way of forcing yourself upon somebody or having the relationship for your agenda, but you're having the relationship because you value the person, you value who they are, and you see the potential in them, and you're wanting to unlock it. And once they feel that they are valued, they will be more open to you bringing items and things to them in discussion, and you to be able to speak into their life and be able to provoke them unto love and good works. And that's what Hebrews 10:24 and 5 says. Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, so much the more as you see the day approaching. He says, let us consider. What do we consider? The word consider means to perceive, observe, and understand. Let's understand each other, and then let's provoke each other, which means to incite, to sharpen, to stimulate, to change, and to encourage. So I saw an article about the power of a smile a couple years ago. And I know I need to smile more. When I'm on these videos, I'm serious about what I'm doing. And so I know that I've got more of a serious look on my face, but I know I need to smile more myself. And my staff around me says, you need to smile more when you're teaching. It makes it more palatable. But I saw an article about the power of a smile and how a simple smile brings friendliness and it opens conversations. And in this article, it said that they did a survey and they found that most women simply want a smile from a man when you meet. In other words, let's say I'm walking into a store and a woman's walking out and our eyes catch, and if I don't smile, it has an effect on that woman of how she values and sees herself. But every time a man would smile at a woman, it would make them feel accepted and valued, not even knowing the person. A smile will open up doors to people's hearts so you can influence those hearts. So you have to stop and ask yourself, what or who am I encouraging to take action today? And how am I sharpening them by what I'm adding to their life? I find that most people today are really timid to convey what God has done or means in their own life. If it really meant that much to us, we would be looking for the opportunities every single day to create relationships, develop relationships, and bring things of influence into people's lives. A little coffee. So, the surveys that I looked at said the average person over their life, not a leader, just the average person, is going to actually affect 10,000 people in their lifetime. Could possibly be more, but the deciding factor is how many people am I influencing by how many relationships I have built. It's completely related to that, and then it's related to a second thing of how I'm investing into that relationship that I value. So I can't stress enough the importance of relationships being nurtured and what we invest into those relationships. All relationships that are in your life today are ordained by God, but He expects us to maintain them. He brings people across our pathway for certain reasons. Maybe it's for us to be influenced by them, and maybe it's for us to influence them. I was amazed sitting at a conference a couple years ago. A major influencer was sitting at my table, and I shared something very simple with him. And he came up to me later and he said, my gosh, that so affected me. I'm going to go home and I'm going to consider what you said. And I was actually shocked that I had something that could influence this man. But this man, being an influencer himself, knows you have to always be teachable. And so I saw that I was actually carrying something that I didn't realize that I was carrying. and we will never unfold or unveil what we have to ourselves even if we don't build relationships and share things with other people through a point of influencing for the kingdom. All the problems that you have in life and ministry really are going to come down to just plain having weak relationships. And so to become a person of influence in the kingdom, here's just some simple things to do. Of course, that smile really helps, doesn't it? See, if I start smiling at you right now, you'll probably receive what I'm about to say. But be approachable. Be confident of what you are carrying. Be willing to invest. Be willing to start new relationships with people. A lot of times we are very hesitant to start new relationships. And I'm one that I can meet people just walking down the street, and I can stop and have a conversation and start dialoguing. And you know what always seems to be? It's because hi, how are you doing? Good to see you. Great day, isn't it? And I find common ground with a smile that I'm wanting to dialogue with somebody. So be willing to start new relationships and look at the places that you currently can invest into people. And here's a really important one. Don't look at tasks that you do for God as a task, but look at it as an opportunity to be around people that you can influence. And when you find these people, ask God this: is this relationship for this moment? Is this a relationship for a season? Or is this a relationship for a lifetime? Look at how 12 men turned the world upside down. It didn't take a lot of men to do it. It just took 12 who decided they would become the influencers of a brand new understanding of Christ and the kingdom. Look at how Paul today continues to influence us even after he is gone. We all read the writings of Paul and Luke and the story of Jesus. The influence continues on. Look at how the writers of the past are still influencing us today as well. We look at books that many people have read, and they influence us in what we believe and how we're going to act out those beliefs in our culture. If you'd make a list right now today, you could probably say, here's my primary list of people that I know I influence regularly. Here's a secondary list that I have some influence in, and here's a third list of people I know but I actually have no influence in. Look at those lists and go back and say, this first list, how am I really influencing them, and am I influencing them in the things I want? Second list, I want to shore up these relationships so I have greater influence. The third list, I need to know who these people are so I can start influencing them. Well, that is the teaching today I wanted to give, that you can be a kingdom influencer, how to go about it a little bit. Look around you. You're influencing today whether you wanted to or not, and you're influencing people, good, bad, or ugly, whether you wanted to or not. So find those people, build those relationships, and invest into their life. God bless you, and we'll talk again.
Thanks for joining Legacy School today. We hope you are blessed with the teachings that will lead you to deeper truths in God. If you want to step further into revelation and advanced teaching, please visit legacyschoolonline.com to enroll. Again, that's legacyschoolonline.com. See you in school.